Well, if I wanted more Hawk and McDougal, this sure as hell ain't the episode to get it. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Part 3 of We Own This City is dropped, and one thing you can say for sure, there is a level of consistency that happens for this show. It does not get to massive levels of like, oh my god, this is amazing television, and it never gets to a point where like, oh my god, I'm not watching any of this. It hits that we're going to consistently just beat you over the head with fantastic acting and some really good camera work and shots. And that's sort of what we get here. A lot of it, unfortunately, is a bit handcuffed because this is based in reality, so you can't really have super highs because that stuff didn't exist. But in this part, we start and focus on Tom, who sort of gets the bookend of this episode. He is the creator of the gun task force, and he is now, it's his turn to sort of go in front of the FBI and have his discussion. But first, he stops by his lawyer, and his lawyer is like, "Yo, they got you dead to rights. They got you on racketeering, they got you on conspiracy, they got you on stealing $10,000 just cause. You need to give them something. You need to give them a taste." And Tom's like, "Nah, I ain't dropping a dime. I ain't doing none of that." And the lawyer kind of gives him the heads up, like, "Hey, the racketeering and the conspiracy, I might can get you out of that. You got to talk to me about this $10,000." And that's sort of what is the breadcrumbs for this episode. Is that 10 grand? So what we come to find out is on that stake, the 10 grand that he got, there was this huge bust. He went to this home. I believe the character name was Darnell. He went to the house and they just ransacked the place, tore it up and down. They left the mother and the two daughters downstairs, and they went up and just started turning things over just to find anything. And they found two guns. One had the serial numbers kind of sliced off. And Tom tells them to take those downstairs to sort of give him a warning, let him know what he's gotten himself into. But while they do that, he is taking money that he had in a shoebox in the closet and just putting it in his shield, in his bulletproof vest, and finding pockets and just stuffing it all in there. And he doesn't report any of that money. And not only does he not report any of that money to put it on the police report, when asked about it on the side, he's like, "Yo, what should we put on there?" He's like, "Man, I ain't happy. I find no money. You know, if I found some money in there, I'd share it with you." He didn't give the rest of the team that take. And the lawyer sort of hints that the rest of your team has dropped a dime on you about that $10,000 because they didn't get any of it. So because he was selfish with himself, because he got too high and mighty, he even said like, "Yo, I got greedy on that one." Because he got so greedy, it is led back to the sort of, this is what we're coming after you for, because this one we can make stick because the rest of the folks in your unit have corroborated this story. But he built this team piece by piece, brick by brick. And it is sort of coming to bite him because what we see in the very tail end of this episode is that that young man who had that 10,000 stolen from him and wasn't reported or anything, there was no trace of it, he just lost it. That money was owed to a drug dealer, his supplier, and they're gonna take a hit out on him. And so IAB and FBI, when they're trying to find out more about that 10,000, they come and find out that family is fatherless and he's not there. And so they kind of put that on Tom's plate, like, "Hey, you may have not killed him, but you're indirectly responsible for his death." And Tom is kind of like, "Well, shit." And that's when he realizes that he's kind of effed. And his lawyer's kind of like, "Yo, can we have a moment? Because, damn." I think the biggest thing about this episode is sort of a repetition thing that's happened in this series, but it's what they're trying to get across is that policing, or the thought of policing, is getting conflated and confused. And you have some folks who are too afraid to do anything because they feel like they may get arrested or jammed up or indicted and all that stuff. And you have folks who take it too far. They're just beating the crap out of people. And no matter what you do, if you're not doing what is considered to actually be policing, you somehow get to fail up in this. We see Danny Herschel, who gets called into the office with Tom, and like I said, as he's building his team brick by brick, they're kind of condemning him, like, hey, you got a lot of, in the eastern side, you got a lot of complaints, a lot of people complaining about you and throwing up write-ups. So we're gonna move you to the task force with Tom here, and they all kind of have a good laugh and like ha 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 moment, just to show you that we're gonna move you from that one where you're getting a lot of complaints, but we like that good police work. We want that type of stuff from you, so we're gonna move you to this team who's already sort of been corrupt. We're just gonna keep the ball rolling. We'll move you from one spot to another. And you sure to get that again because there's sequence where we watch Jenkins do what we saw in the first episode where they're going around the block and trying to just get people off the corner. They sort of clean up the city, but not really do anything that actually cleans up the city. And there's just two folks on their stoop, and Jenkins comes by once and kind of has a tit for tat, back and forth with them. They're not really feeling it. He's like, "Oh, this is my place." He runs. They run out. He gives them a warning. Says, "Yo, get off the stoop." They're like, "All right, we're gonna do it." And they start pulling off, but Jenkins can see in the mirror that they're not really moving. So they do a flip around, come back, still not moving. They get out Jenkins, and Jenkins assaults that man and beats the shit out of him, punches him, blood. He's in a bad way. We then fast forward just a little bit, and Jenkins gets called into the office, and it seems like he's going to get in trouble. He feels like he starts to almost kind of feels bad for what he's done, but they kind of are like, "Yo, what did you do? You beat this man to a pulp for stitches. Now we got to explain all this." And Jenkins starts like, "All right, maybe I did take it a little too far." And they stop him. They kind of they're ribbing him. They don't give a damn about this black dude getting beat up or the fact that he did completely shitty police work. They are saying like, "Hey, next time some shit like this happens, man, just come to us. Like, the report is where this starts. You need to write a better report, and all this would have gone away." You can talk about the bottle that, in the scene, the bottle just dropped and shattered. But they're like, "Yo, you should have said this bottle got thrown at you, because then you would have said, we fear for your life," and you just started wailing on the dude. We're here to protect you. You do too good of police work for you not to be protected, and we got your back all the time. You just need to let us know everything so that we can write it up in a way that makes it all pretty and flowery, so you can go in and continue doing this great police work that you're doing. What the fuck? It is, again, another person failing up, and that's sort of what they do. They're just moving pieces around because a few folks, they have so few police officers currently in this era who are doing anything police-wise, aren't arresting anybody, aren't doing anything, that the ones that kind of are getting at least the numbers up, they want to keep them and move them around because they're considered to be valuable pieces of this very shitty police department. The parts of the episode that does not work as well for me is the Steele stuff. I like her as an actress, and I think what she's doing is great, but there's a bit of a repetition that keeps happening with her going from place to place to person to kind of get information about how shitty the police department is. We know the police department is shitty. Like, we've seen it. Every single episode has shown this. I wish there was something we could give this journalist, this character, because we're not learning any new information. We do learn that Davis, the new police chief, is sort of just a stooge. He is in this middle ground where he doesn't know what to do. He wants, or at least gives off the feel that he wants to do more, but he is stuck. The mayor that hired him is going to be on his way out, and the job rotates so much that people aren't really respecting him. They're like, "Hey, yo, you're going to be gone in 6 months anyway, so why we got to listen to what the hell you want?" So he's not really taking a stand the way that Nicole feels like he should be. And she's getting varying reports from various people that she interacts with about what side he truly is on and where he stands. And she has a pretty interesting conversation with the union board and union reps that leads to the same ending conversation that we've had with her having these conversations with other people in previous episodes. So it is just a lot of, yeah, police are shitty, and it becomes this like chicken or the egg thing. What comes first, good policing or getting rid of the bad ones? And who helps to do so? She has a moment with a local poet who's kind of like, "Yeah, all the water is dirty," and she's like, "Dirty water ain't gonna clean it." He's like, "Dirty water ain't gonna clean up anything." She's like, "Well, hold on. What if you use the dirty water to put out fires?" My man's like, "The fire's here. It ain't gonna work for her." And so we get into this continuous cycle where we just see her go from place to place. And I feel like this is going to be it for the rest of it. Is that her character doesn't really get much room to grow or do anything because she's just reporting on the facts of a broken system that I don't know if we need to. Us seeing Jenkins get moved up, us seeing Herschel get switched over, us seeing them stop and frisk this couple and find the gun and take money away from them, us seeing all of that shows us that we are living with a corrupt police force. I don't need another 25 minutes dedicated to telling us. You know what I mean? That said, the biggest piece of all of this, and what I wanted to see for a while, because we got a hint of it at the very top of the first episode, was this relationship between Suiter and Jenkins. Suiter is a good cop. That is what we have been led to believe, that he is doing everything humanly possible to be considered a good cop. And in Homicide, we now see, we get the seeds of how he got there or why he chose this. He's doing everything by the letter of the law as much as he can. He is following trails, he's following clues, he's following gunshot, shell casings, and he gets lucky. We sort of get him a wire reunion between Suiter and Dixon, two actors and characters that were both in The Wire. We sort of get that back. And this time, Dixon's not a drug addict and just high on supply. He is a officer who is one of the good ones, and he has done things. There were shell casings that happened at across, like around the corner from the shooting that took place with the case that Suiter got. And that officer Dixon, he just took the shells, then he put them in evidence, and those shells popped and were part of a gun that Suiter was sort of sitting on, and he kind of led the breadcrumbs out to kind of figure out who's doing what, and then got their arrest, despite not really getting both the approval and the help from the community, because they understand, as two black cops, they understand the community's not really effing with them, so they kind of like have to do things by the letter of the law, but there is still, even with that resistance, they're showing that even with that resistance, there still can be good police work. Whereas we've seen so much other resistance, and the first thing they do is punch, kick. But I think that shows you the difference of people who are of that community, black folks, and the way that they are willing to like go that extra mile and do what is necessary to do good police work, versus the white folks who kind of just like, these people don't appreciate our time, so let's just punch their heads in. But we flash back a little bit. We see a moment when Suiter and Jenkins are partners on police force. And at first, you get a scene where Suiter joins Jenkins and some other folks at a bar, other cops at a bar, and they kind of are having shots and having a good thing. Suiter goes to the restroom, and Jenkins kind of asks the people like, "Yo, can we trust him?" And they're kind of like, "I don't know." Basically, they know he's a good cop. They just don't know if they can trust him to take a taste, because if he doesn't take a taste, then he seems like he may be dropping a dime on them. So we get a whole sequence where they ambush a garage that is supposed to have guns and money and all that good stuff. The usual. They go in and Jenkins goes in hot. He's talking big shit. He's wagging his dick around pretty much because he has the man arrested, and he just starts tearing things up. He takes a crowbar and starts beating the place up. Shows him he has a warrant, but he just starts beating the place up and like, "Yo, where's the stuff at? Where's the stuff at?" And Suiter finds it. There's a table that level-wise and weight-wise doesn't make sense for the room that it's in, and come to find out that there was guns, drugs, and about, I think, 50,000 in cash in there. And at that moment, there's sort of a one-to-one with Jenkins and Suiter. And Jenkins is kind of like, "Yo, this is a good bust. I'll tell you what, we can take these guns and drugs and report all this, but the money ain't got to be reported." And he's like, "Hey, we can even put it in." And Suiter's kind of like, "Wait, what? What are you talking about?" And he's just very confused. He's like, "We can't just walk out of here with 50, like with all this money. Like, it's got to be reported." My man was like, "Nah, the bus, we've done our job with the bus. Like, we're getting guns off the street, we're doing this, we're good here. Then anybody will miss this." What we have seen here is that Jenkins is sort of taking a position where he is he can't do some of the things or get some of the bus that the gun task force gets. And they're eating steaks and having Patron or Patron. They're living high off the life where he's still getting crumbs. And he's like, no, I got to get my taste. So he started doing some of those things with his unit. And so in this moment with Suter, he sort of put the test out there, like, hey, do you want a taste? And Suter's like, nah, I don't want no parts of that. He sees him stuffing the money in there. He's kind of just having this crisis. So the sequence, the episode ends with Suter and Jenkins in a car. And my man puts the money down and was like, yo, you want it? And we fade to black with basically a decision not being made. Apparent to me that this is probably what swings Suter over to homicide. He doesn't want any parts of this. Like, this isn't for him what is considered to be good police work. The question is whether or not he takes the money. So if he takes the money, then Suter has one on him. Or if he takes the money and then reports it on his own, which is an option which I think may be a part of this. Maybe what sort of gets because everything we've seen has had them watching Tom and the that task force and not really putting anything on Jenkins. I feel like that is pretty much going to be the seed that may start that and then get Suter off of them. Or maybe he does take a taste and all of a sudden he realizes, like, oh, this isn't what I want. But I feel like if he does take a taste, then I think the muck of it with Jenkins sort of being involved, he's going to throw stuff at Suter, like, hey, no, don't trust him. He took some. And it would sort of mess up the one good cop. It would put a stain on the one good cop if he did take a taste in this scenario. But I think safety-wise, he may feel like he needed to. It's a powerful scene. I don't know this story or the inner workings of them so well, so I don't know exactly how it turns out. But it's clear that he did something enough to ask to be put to homicide or to move up to be put to homicide. So I think in the next few episodes, we're going to sort of see. We're going to get the answer to this immediately, but we're also going to sort of see what then took place next to get him from doing those search and seizures and those busting up heads to actual detective work and police work. I think the biggest thing for me from this episode was just seeing how when two officers who are African American start doing the legwork and the police work of the community, things clean up a little bit better. I think the answer to what the bit rat race and the repetition that Nicole is doing is that you might just need to put more people who look like that community in that community to sort of try and clean up that community, which has sort of been what everybody's kind of been clamoring. We're not always talking about defunding the police or kind of let's train the police and get people who are of that world in that world. Because it's clear that when Jenkins or Herschel or Tom get out of that car, they have a much lower respect for people who don't look like them. They just don't care. They're like, they're animals. So I can punch, I can kick, I can do whatever I want to them. There is no care. Even when Suter went up to the girl to sort of put her in a situation where she would give up her boyfriend, the shooter, or what he believed to be the shooter, there is still a respect being done there. He's like, I will arrest you, and I will put you in handcuffs and all that stuff. But at no point is like, I'm going to punch you in your face. You're going to give me what I need. That doesn't happen. Whereas if it was Herschel or Jenkins, who knows how that great police work could have gone. Again, part 3, another really good episode. The acting in this is phenomenal. The direction is phenomenal. I'm starting to now get the vibe of these writing on the warrant and coming back and flashing back. The timeline works for me. I just wish that we could, since I didn't get anything with McDougal and Hulk, they're just gone in this entire episode. I do wish that we could get a little bit more or something new for Nicole to do. Her just going around the town and talking to people who keep repeating the exact same thing is getting a bit old. And she's too good of an actress to sort of waste on just those repetition scenes. But what do you guys think about part 3 of We Own the City? Go leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI, or you can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere the place podcast. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.